Hi all, I'm creating a video to explain how to present your 10 pages which represent your folio for moderation for your research project so that you can review it over and over again as you need to if you need reminders, and also for those people who are unable to be in class. So what we mark as teachers is your whole folio. That is, we expect you to submit your folder, and that should have all evidence, all notes, a copy of your whole sources table, your primary sources table if you had one, recordings from interviews, etc. Everything should be within that folder, and that's what we're actually marking. But what the moderators actually see is 10 pages which represent your folio. As you can imagine, they can't have 30,000 folders sent into head office because there just wouldn't be enough room to store them all. So these 10 pages need to represent the quality of research that you've undertaken throughout your research journey. We're actually marking two areas, that's planning and development, and it's the same whether you're doing research project A or research project B. So planning and development. For planning, we're looking at P1, the consideration and refinement of a research project question, and P2, the planning and research processes appropriate to the research question. For P1, the consideration and refinement of a research question, we're actually looking way back to the beginning of when you started your research project, the notes that you undertook, the little activities that you did to determine what your research project question was going to be. And so all of those little things come into play now. You can take screenshots of them or photos of them and overlay them into other documents that you put in, just to show how that research project question developed over time. Another way of demonstrating it is your proposal, and I've certainly asked you over time that as you change or refine your question further, that you update your proposal and call that version 2, version 3, version 4, etc. So as now is the time to go back and look at all those versions and actually determine what changes you made, and make some notes down the side of your proposal to demonstrate how your research project question actually developed over time. P2 is the planning and research processes appropriate to the research question, and so you can demonstrate this through a copy of your mind map with annotations on it about how the processes changed and developed along the way. You can add in screenshots of appointments that you made, of interviews that you may have had, and also you can put in evidence of the way you manage your time. So you might have photos of your diary or journal entries or notes that you've taken, etc., just that demonstrate that there was planning about the research processes appropriate to your research question. Then we're looking at development, and there's 4 performance standards here. So D1 is the development of your research. D2 is the analysis of the information and the exploration of ideas to develop the research. D3 is the development of knowledge and skills specific to your research project question. And D4 is understanding and development of one or more capabilities. So let's look at D1 in more detail. This can be demonstrated through 2 or 3 detailed pages from your sources table, or from your primary sources table if you had one. If you only had a couple of entries in it, you may just want to put a snapshot of the primary sources table on one of the pages from your 2 or 3 sources table pages. Show the dates of these so that the development can be evidenced, so you're showing that it happened over a period of time, not just in 1 week. And annotate to discuss where one source may have led you to ask questions and seek further information. D2, is the analysis of information and the exploration of ideas to develop your research. So this is where your right-hand column of your sources table really comes into play. So you might add some annotations specifically to that right-hand side to demonstrate how you analysed your information and how you interrogated each of your sources, to ensure that they are reliable and they were credible, and show us how you validated one source against another so that you could ensure that that information again was reliable. You can demonstrate this, as I said, through the right-hand side column of your sources table, but also through your crafted pages. So we're going to talk about those in a little bit more detail later. So D3 is the development of knowledge and skills specific to your research project question. You can demonstrate evidence of this through knowledge annotation boxes and skills annotation boxes. So on your crafted page, you might have 2 or 3 sources that you've selected, and they don't necessarily need to be readable, but you need to put a picture of a section or a page into a text box so that it's evident that it has actually happened. And then around that, we'll put some annotation boxes, and 2 of those boxes should definitely be knowledge, so the knowledge that you developed through your research, and skills, so the skills that you developed through your research. So again, you're evidencing how these have developed over time. If, for instance, you undertook a series of interviews, then put a couple of transcript pages and demonstrate the difference between one interview and the next interview. Show how you needed to use specific strategies to further your knowledge about your specific topic. So interviews lend themselves more to one topic than another. What did you use the bulk of to make sure that you could access as wide a range of information as possible? And then D4, so understanding and development of one or more of your capabilities. This is the only opportunity to just demonstrate the development of your capability, and a whole performance standard is based on it. So you do need to get this one right. Way back in the beginning, you had one paragraph in your proposal where you introduced what capability you would be discussing, and so over these 10 pages, maybe over 5 or 6 of them, you're going to put some annotations in, and that's going to represent how you have developed this capability. So how have you identified areas within that capability that have developed over the time? How does it relate to your future? And how have you developed it over the 6 months that we've been doing the research project? So, looking at these performance standards in more detail, you need to be really familiar with the actual language of them. Let's start with the planning side of the table. So if you look at P1 at a C standard, then we're looking at some consideration of a research question, but with little evidence of a refinement. And so therefore, just submitting your first proposal, but demonstrating that you haven't actually changed it along the way or really done a lot of consideration about it will maybe get you to the C minus kind of standard. To be heading up towards a B grade, we need to be looking at some consideration and some refinement of your research question, so that's where your annotation comes in. But when you put really detailed annotation in about how that's really developed over a period of time, and as I said, we're continuously refining this question, so it could have been even 2 weeks ago, actually probably before you produce your outcome, that you were still just refining the wording of that question to make sure that you're answering it wholly and that you are able to have enough information to answer it as well. So that's where we see thorough consideration and refinement of your research question. P2, satisfactory planning of research processes that are appropriate to your research question. That will be your mind map and maybe a couple of sort of low-level annotations. When we're getting some more considered planning, so you can demonstrate that you really thought about the research processes that you are going to use appropriate to your research question, that's when we're getting to a B level. And to hit it at an A level, we're looking at thorough planning and research processes. So we're really looking for some in-depth annotations speaking to us about how you really considered what research processes you would use and how they were highly appropriate to your research question. And now if we come over to the development side, then we look at these 4 performance standards. We can see that for D4, satisfactory understanding and development of one or more capabilities can be demonstrated through, the paragraph in your proposal and then maybe 1 or 2 entries, so that's to get a C level. once to get up to a B level, we need to have informed understanding. So there needs to be some depth to the conversation that you're having about how that capability actually developed. And then to get up to an A, it needs to be thorough and informed understanding about the development of your capability. So really talking about how it developed over time and how that's really necessary and how it helps your future as well. You can discuss, 2 or 3 capabilities, but I highly recommend you only do one. I'd rather see one in-depth capability coverage throughout those 10 pages than to have many at a surface level, because you can't hit the A standard at that point, okay? If we look at D3, then that's the satisfactory development of knowledge and skills. So this is really going to be evident in the left-hand column of your sources table and also in the annotations about knowledge and skill development over your crafted pages. To be getting at a high level, we need some complexity in your analysis, so really making some connections about why it was important to interrogate that source before you used it. And to get to an A standard, we need in-depth analysis of your information and exploration of your ideas about how you developed your research. Looking at D2, looking at D1, looking at D1, we're looking at satisfactory development of the research. So this is really where the dates of your sources table entries come into play, and there should also be a significant amount of research to be hitting up here at a highly resourceful development of your research, okay? To be hitting it at a C, we're only looking at satisfactory development, so you can talk about maybe 15 sources, 12 to 15. Up here, we're looking at evidence of, don't forget, you have to show evidence of a wider range of sources and I guess a bigger range of sources to hit it at a B, but to be getting it at an A, we need the thorough and highly resourceful development of the research. To be looking for further examples, please go to the website where there's student exemplars, and they've also got the gradings on them, so you can look at how each of these 6 performance standards have been marked and what evidence those students gave in relation to their topics to hit those grades. So for your 10 pages, we will be looking at having a proposal, which would be annotated, a mind map, which would be annotated, 2 to 3 pages from your sources table, 1 page from your primary sources table if you've used one, evidence of recording your challenges and opportunities over time, evidence of notes, development, refinement of your question over time, and then the remaining 4 to 6 pages will be crafted. So these pages will demonstrate evidence of a range of sources collected. So you really need to show breadth, show interviews, show field trips that you went to, show medical journals if you access them, show magazines, newspapers, documentaries, demonstrate evidence that you looked far and wide for your information. Demonstration of evidence that you've stepped out of your comfort zone so that this has stretched you and helped you grow, and that you're leaving school, I guess, a more savvy consumer of knowledge, that you're not going to believe the first thing that you see. And also your crafted pages are going to be annotated, so demonstrating knowledge, skills and capability development, and they're going to demonstrate aspects of your research journey. You can also demonstrate that you've developed a range of skills. The due dates for these pages are the 10 pages of your folio. We want the first 6 pages in draft by this Thursday, the 8th of June. Okay, and then we want the final 4 pages by the following Thursday. So I'll give you feedback on the first 6 as fast as I can, and meanwhile you'll be starting to work on the final 4 pages. I've also given you feedback on your final review or evaluation, so you'll need to be working on that because that will be due the same date as this, on the 15th of June. So the final 10 pages after feedback, with no further feedback, will be due on Monday the 19th of June. Okay, good luck with that.